Welcome everybody. I see a lot of new faces in here and I am so glad you're here. My name's Kimmy Cole. I'm the chair of the Douglas Democrats. A lot of people call me that tall blonde with the deep voice. And occasionally I get called a little worse, you know, but we live with it. What we're going to do, first of all, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dave, would you lead us, please?
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So a lot of the time we cover details and we're not even going to do any of that. We've had a group that has been working on questions now over the course of the last several weeks. And we were over here for a couple hours last night, distilled it to a manageable number of questions to kind of get to the heart of the issues that came up. I'm sure we're not going to answer every question tonight, but I'm going to ask each one of the candidates. They're each going to get exactly the same questions, so we're not going to be bombarding with a bunch of wild questions. Everybody gets to answer the same questions. And the other thing that I'll be really clear is we really did not set this up to be a debate between the candidates. What we want to know is how each of the candidates feels about the questions that we're going to ask. It'll have to do with how are you going to lead the community and how do you see the vision. So we're going to ask, each of you to just give us your thoughts, on each of the questions. Does that sound okay? And one of the other things too is we're recording this, just to let everybody know, just to keep a record that we're all here. And I've offered all the candidates that they get basically the last right of refusal. We're not going to put it out in the public or post it on our website until all four of them say, yes, it's okay, we're okay with that. So we're here to learn about the candidates and their issues. We're not here to toss anybody, out by surprises. Okay, so the very first thing, we need to introduce Mary. As this is Mary Crawley.
I've spoken to each of the candidates.
Okay.
And I've explained that each question is, you have a minute and 30 seconds to answer it. Should we talk about the wild card?
I'll do that.
Okay. They have a minute and 30 seconds to answer it. I have this very technical timer that all of you are familiar with. I have 3 cards. Green is we're at a minute, yellow is we're at a minute 15, and red is that we are Dunsky at our minute 30. If anybody would like to come watch my clock, make sure that everything's all even, I have it right here in my hand. Thanks.
Just let everybody know we don't have any Golden Globe music, so we got to rely on Mary on this one. Was that good? Everybody got that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to start off. I'm going to give every one of you 90 seconds to open up. Just tell us your name, a little bit about yourself, a little bit of foundation, the quickest, bestest elevator speech that you've ever given. So we'll start with you, Dean, since you're closest.
Well, my name is Dean Paris. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, grew up in San Diego, joined the Marine Corps in 1990, and got out of the Marine Corps in 94, went back in 2001, and got out in 2017. What are you looking for in your next sheriff? If I were you, I would vote for someone that first and foremost cares about the community. And that person has proven leadership and someone that has never had their ethics or morals questioned. I would look for someone that will hold their personnel accountable and always set the example. As I talk to many folks throughout the community, some of the same questions have come up. They want change, and they are tired of the status quo. Well, I am that change. I know I'm an outsider, but that does not mean it's a bad thing. A fresh set of eyes with new perspectives and ideas in a growing community is just what we need. I will be a constitutional sheriff and protect what you value most. I have proven leadership, knowledge, and experience to bring the sheriff's office and the community back together again. Vote for Dean Paris, June 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And Joe Duffy, you are on.
Well, welcome everybody. My name is Joe Duffy. I want to tell you about myself real quick, how I grew up. So I kind of grew up in the 70s and 80s watching cop shows like Chips, Adam 12, Magnum PI. And I always knew as a young boy that when I grew up, I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. I wanted to help people that could not help themselves. So 20 years later, here I am in Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and I met my wife, Teresa Duffy, here 25 years ago at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, where I became a deputy sheriff and she became a deputy sheriff and moved here to Douglas County. I have worked every single assignment you can work here at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I've been here 23 years. I'm the current patrol captain. I worked for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for about 6 years. I have been the captain the longest here at the Sheriff's Office. I've run 3 different divisions: the jail division, our administration division, and our patrol division. I'm also the current SWAT commander of a 16-person SWAT team and a 6-man canine unit. I'm also a former canine handler myself with many, many arrests with 2 different dogs, and I'm very proud of those arrests. I'm also a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and I promise you, if you vote for me on June 12th, I will not let you down as your sheriff. Thank you for listening to me.
Dan Coverley, take it away.
Hi, my name is Dan Coverley. I grew up in Douglas County, graduated from Douglas High in 1988. I'm married to my wife Sarah. We have 3 daughters, 2 in college, one's a sophomore at the high school. I graduated from the University of New Mexico with a degree in criminology. Started my law enforcement career with the Albuquerque Police Department. Shortly after I graduated, we had our first child, Hannah, and I knew that I wanted to move back home so I could raise my family in this wonderful community that we all love. Like Joe, I've worked for the Sheriff's Office for 21 years. I've held every rank and worked in every division up to captain in the Sheriff's Office, and have been blessed with being able to do a lot of interesting things and had a good career with the Sheriff's Office that I'm proud of, and I'm glad that I've been able to work here. One of the most important things that I think is key for the Sheriff's Office is the relationship with the community. And it's important that the citizens know and trust the Sheriff's Office, that we will do the right thing, and that we will help you when you need to be helped, and we will respond in a timely manner and provide that service that is required. And so I appreciate this opportunity to meet you and to talk to you, and appreciate your vote June 12th. Thank you.
Brady, welcome.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I think I speak for Joe and Dean when I say I'm glad there's no height requirement for this job. First, I'd like to introduce my wife, my beautiful wife, Mary. Yesterday, we celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary. We raised 5 children in Douglas County. We have 2 grandchildren and 1 granddaughter on the way, so we're thrilled to death. What I want to do is share some of my background education experience. I started in law enforcement in 1978. For those of you doing the math, it was 40 years ago. Like Joe, I always knew I wanted to be a police officer. My favorite show was Wild Wild West. So I went to work for the city of Redondo Beach as a police officer and worked patrol. I spent some time in traffic where I was a DUI officer, and in 6 months arrested approximately 300 drunk drivers. I was declared an expert by the court in DUI investigations. I too was a canine officer. I ended up with the meanest, baddest dog. The previous handler walked into the chief's office and handed the leash to the chief and said, "I can't handle this dog, so that I get the dog." And the first thing he does at a correction is come up the leash and fight me. In 1985, 33 years ago, we moved to Douglas County when our daughter was born, and we wanted to raise a family here. I went to work for the Game and Control Board as a financial investigator, and during that time, I obtained my CFP designation with the expectation that I would manage money for police associations, high net worth individuals, and pension plans in Nevada and Southern California. Also during that time, I got my education. I ended up getting a bachelor's degree from USC. I'm done? 90 seconds. I don't need 2 minutes.
90 seconds.
Okay, I'll finish later, but I do have a master's degree in public administration. USC, fine.
Okay, so our Vice Chair, Joe Newfer, and I are going to switch off just asking the questions, and we're going to ask everybody to answer the same question, no particular order. So I'll get this one going. Start with you, Dan. In the December 2016, January 2017 timeframe, the DCSO lost 12 sworn employees. What steps will you take to stabilize the current environment and retain current competent DCSO employees?
The first step to having a good core of men and women that work for you is your hiring process. So you want to search out and recruit the best, most qualified men and women we can. Once they're here, we're talking thousands of dollars to send them to the academy, and so the county, the department has a lot of money invested in them. The biggest problem that new deputies have is finding a place to live, right? And being able to afford to buy a home or rent a home here, and especially if they're the single income earner of the home. What the sheriff is limited on what he can do as far as salaries. I can't set the wage for the deputies, but I can support them in their efforts through collective bargaining, to negotiate the best wage and benefit package they can for the department. And then the other thing that I have total control over is the environment that I create at the sheriff's office. The employees need to feel valued, that they make a difference, that I have confidence in them, and that I will give them the tools and then let them do their job. Mistakes are made and everybody messes up every now and then, and you hold those individuals accountable. But they have to feel part of a team, and I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move over to you, Dave. Same question. In December 2016, do you need the question again?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think if you look in a broader context, it's been within the last 18 to 24 months that we've lost about 24 deputies. This is a much bigger problem that has been cited by the grand jury investigation. I see the problem as threefold. It's climate, culture, and compensation. If you don't have the right climate and the right culture, people leave for the compensation no matter what it is. So the argument will be that we need to pay the deputies more, and I think we need to start by examining the culture and the climate of the organization. The first thing I will do as your sheriff is I will conduct a climate survey, the purpose of which is to interview each and every employee, determine what they see as what's working, what's not working, where they see opportunities for improvement, and how they see themselves working within the organization. I think it's important to create an environment where I think it was Colin Powell said he wanted to lead by listening, and I think that's one of the most important things a leader can do is listen to the employees, and as Dan has said, make sure they feel empowered and that they feel valued as employees. I think it's important for us to examine why the deputies are leaving. When you have that number of deputies leaving, have an exit interview, and they may have that, but I know that when we lost the teachers and I was on the school board, I would call the teacher and say, why did you leave? I want to know why good people leave. And I think that one of the arguments is, we have housing issues. But I think that if we focus on creating the right environment, I think the deputies would be willing to drive, if they had to, from Dayton for a company or for the business of law enforcement. How long was that?
90 seconds. Joe, would you like me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, since 2015, when I took over the patrol division in September, we've actually lost 23 deputies. That's the exact number. 8 of those deputies did full careers here with 23 to 30 years. 7 of those officers worked in a different division. 4 officers were let go for unethical things. 3 officers left law enforcement completely, which is not uncommon because some people realize this isn't the job for them. And only 3 out of that 23 officers went to other agencies. 1 to Reno PD, 1 to an agency in Oregon, and 1 to Sparks PD. The guy that was in Sparks PD had a house up there. So to say that we have a morale problem and a lot of people leaving based on outside forces or inside forces is just not true. The morale problem that is, or perceived morale problem, is only a problem for those deputies that are lazy who I hold accountable. I hold all my deputies accountable. I expect them to do 10 hours work for 10 hours pay. I expect them to go out and do a hard job, just as I did when I was a deputy sheriff in patrol. So, in essence, basically that's all I have to say on that matter. It's the pay is a little bit lower than some of our outside agencies. It's only $2 to $3 lower. I think our pay scale is fine. We just need to bump up that front end so some of the deputies who are coming here are comparable with some of our jurisdictional neighbors. Carson does pay $2 to $3 more an hour, so if we could get that bumped up just a little bit more, we'd be competitive with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dean, would you like to question?
Good, thank you. The first thing I would want to do, not to jump on Dave Brady's thunder, but as a leader, I would want to conduct a climate survey. First, find out why these people are leaving. Secondly, as a leader, get involved, talk to them, find out what the issues are, and being a leader, empower them to come up with a solution from bottom up leading. Have them provide a solution on how to create the problem. Sit down, if they have shortcomings or shortfalls, mentor them, point them in the right direction, even the leaders, pull them aside and mentor them. I mentored 100 Marines in the Marine Corps and helped them get successful in their career. It's not any different than trying to mentor deputies within the sheriff's office. Then I would reach out to the commissioners, ask for some more money to create a retention program and an incentive program to bring deputies from outside the community that want to come here, to kind of give them an incentive to want to live and work here. It's going to be a tough road because the commissioners are tough, but if you get the right sales pitch and to get the people to support you, you can propose that and get that involved, get the commissioners involved to get more people here, keep the deputies here. But the important thing is listening to what the deputies have to say. If they address a problem, as a leader, that problem should be looked into and resolved. And as the sheriff, I will personally see that those issues are resolved, or at least point them in the right direction to get to the bottom, or the concern of why people are leaving, if it's ethics violations or so on and so forth, and work to fix that problem. Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and toss one other thing in there, and we did this really, it worked out really well in 2014. So if any of these questions really hit a passion with you, say, hey, that is really something that registers with me, we'll offer one 5-minute wild card. So you say, I'm going to take this and run. But you can only one.
Can I even mine?
So anyway, tell us, I'm going to take my 5. And it works so well in 2014. If you really want to go for it, one question with the wild card. And for our next question, Joan.
Okay, let's start with Dave on this one and just go down the road. Douglas County is an area where people enjoy their freedoms. However, in light of numerous recent incidents of gun violence, if you were given a magic wand, how would you balance the respect for our liberties and a need to maintain safety?
I'll have Dan answer that. How would I balance?
Balance the respect for our liberties and a need to maintain safety.
Well, my first reaction to that is I'd probably look at getting rid of all the violent games on TV and the violent TV shows, because what that does is it creates an environment for our children and even for adults to think that the value of life is minimal. And I think that back in my day, we had values that we were taught by our parents, and we weren't raised on video games that were nothing but shoot 'em up and bang, bang, kill 'em. And I think that that's where kind of the seeds are planted. And what we have to do is start in the home and get these kids and some adults to reconsider this penchant and fund for using these games, because I think when we're seeing a lot of these shootings, they can be tied back to these individuals that do not in any way value life, and they've grown up that way, thinking that life does not have the value that we all know it should. I made it?
You made it.
Dan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Douglas County is an area where people enjoy their freedoms. However, in light of numerous recent incidents of gun violence, if you were given a magic wand, how would you balance the respect for our liberties and a need to maintain safety?
I don't think that restricting our constitutional rights is the answer. I think that where we need to start, and it's a difficult question, is within the home and within the family, and support that institution the best we can. So we do that through education. We start with young people, and we help support the family through churches, through schools, through athletic programs, after-school programs, that kind of thing and stuff. If we can teach our children to respect themselves and to respect others, okay, and have a respect for the law and for these freedoms that guarantee us the rights that we have and allow us to do the things that we want to do. There is no gun violence in North Korea, but it's not a nice place to live. So where we're a free society, you're going to have people that make wrong decisions and choose to do bad things. And I don't know that we'll ever completely prevent that, but I do think that we can probably do more to support the family and to support our children and to teach them the values that they need to make good decisions and do what's right. And you know, that, I mean, that it's very, very, very complex, and that's kind of a very tip of the iceberg thing. But thank you.
I'd like to have my 5 minutes.
Want your 5?
Yeah.
Okay, he's on for 5.
No?
When you go, I go.
So I'd like to tell you guys about a critical incident that I was involved with my brother. And I'll just start off by telling you that I can remember being able to taste gunpowder in my mouth. It was 2005 of April. My brother and I were working patrol in Graveyard. I was a watch commander. My brother, who's sitting in the audience, was working for me as a patrol deputy. He just stopped a car coming out of Ham Dogs that he thought was driving under the influence. The car pulled into Kings Lane Mobile Home Park, and the passenger of that car got out on foot and disappeared into the night. Called for backup, and I responded there with my canine partner to do a track. It's not uncommon, we get people to run from us, and I caught a lot of people with my dog on the track. So I got there, and when I got in my car, my brother and I came in contact with each other to go over a plan of how we're going to track this guy. That's when I remember being able to taste gunpowder in my mouth. And it takes your body to understand, a minute to understand what's going on, because we were being ambushed by a guy with an AK-47 who had ran back to his home and armed himself and started shooting at us. So 2 rounds go right by my head, and it's a miracle that I wasn't hit. It's just pure luck that I'm standing here today. However, my brother wasn't so lucky. He was hit, and he was hit in the hand, and he lost a finger. Thankfully, we both made it out of that situation alive, but the bad guy that did the shooting ended up turning the gun on himself and killed himself. So there were warning signs. Being mentally ill that this guy was, years earlier we found out that he had spoken to an Army recruiter, and he told that recruiter he wanted to join the military because he wanted to know what it was like to kill people. So my name's Joe Duffy, and I'm a captain here, and as captain here, I have implemented and I currently supervise the Mobile Outreach Safety Team, which is also known as the MOST team in our patrol division. It's a team made up of especially trained deputies that are trained in critical incident training on mentally ill, a paramedic from the East Fork Fire District, and a social worker trained in the mentally ill. They go out every Thursday and they deal with a caseload of about 15 people that we've identified in our community as being severely mentally ill. And they go out to these folks every single Thursday, and they contact them, and they tell them, and they make sure that they have food in their pantry, they make sure that they're taking their medication, they make sure that they're going to the doctor, if they need a ride somewhere, we give them a ride. We make sure that they're bathing, because some of these folks are very, very destitute. We don't want to see these people ended up in our jails. We have no mental health facility here in Douglas County. We have to take our people to the Mallory Center and to Carson City and up to Sparks for some of the more severe folks. So it's my goal here, as your sheriff, to get every deputy here trained in crisis intervention training. It's a 40-hour class. It's a lot of work. But dealing with the mentally ill that left untreated negatively impact many, many lives, and we've all seen that stuff on TV. And don't think for a second that Douglas County is immune to that. We have a rising mental health problem here, and I'm telling you that I have the training and the resources, and I have partnerships with federal agencies to bring those resources here to our county for our benefit. So as your sheriff, I want to protect every single one of you. And when a shooting like these occur, there is no warning. When you're at Walmart, when you're at the theater here next door, when you're in Carson City at an event at Fuji Park, there is no warning when these things happen. You have to have a plan. That's run, hide, or fight, and not in that order. So I tell everybody, you need to have a plan, because there is no warning, just like it was when I was tasting gunpowder in my mouth. What is that taste? And what is that loud sound? Because there's, like I said, they don't wear a sign around their neck saying you're about to be killed. So you have to have that plan. So one of the things I'd like to do as your sheriff is continue to work with our schools, training in the schools for active assailant. We don't call it active gunman anymore, we call it active assailant, because not all these mass murders occur with guns. They occur with vehicles, knives, and other instruments of death. And so I want to train all of you for free. We could set up training in our community center at our station and train you how to react when one of these violent situations happens, because you don't want to be thinking of this when it's too late. So again, I ask for your vote on June 12th to please vote for me, because I care about this county and I will work hard for you as your sheriff. So thank you very much.
Dean, would you like me to repeat the question?
Good, thank you. If I had a magic wand, I would go back to the 1980s, because to me that was a critical time in my life. Everyone remembers the 80s. Parents were holding the children accountable. Children were outside playing, working on models, not playing video games. And then society started changing when they started coming out with social media, video games, and they started getting more graphic, and they kept hitting the reset. Okay, let's change a magazine, hit the A button, and vice versa on the Xbox and PlayStation. Society as a whole is partially to blame for where we're at today with all this violence going on. The media feeds on it. People on social media feed on it. Anytime an incident happens, people are so prone to feed on it, they don't go back to look, like Captain Duffy was saying, go back to the mental illness aspect of it. What led up to it. It all comes to education, going back, talking to parents, talking to students, getting them educated, and giving them the option to go outside and start playing after-school activities, having hobbies besides video games. If they're on the video game 5 hours a day, take the video game around, give them a model and help them build a model, get their mind off all the violence they see all the time. If the news is talking about it, change the channel. Try to reset them to get them back where we grew up as kids. We remember going outside, playing basketball, cops coming by, playing basketball with us, or buying us a Slurpee at 7-Eleven, happened to me numerous times. Those days are gone. It's hard to go back, but we at least reflect, and that's where I would like to go.
Thank you. So we'll keep moving along. Start with you, Dan, on this one. How would you ensure job competence and accountability for your officers and staff?
Excellent question. That is done through training. And so every officer that's hired by the sheriff's office, they start in the jail. They have a year to go through the police academy, so they have to pass that. That's a series of very intense 16 weeks there where they live there. They learn A to B or A to Z, everything there is to know about law enforcement. As you promote within the sheriff's office, there's a testing process. So through that testing process, we should be selecting the most qualified and best applicant for that position. And then there is continual, through post, it's your basic, intermediate, advanced, supervisory, management certificates that you can get, okay? And those are all done through required training, classes, college education is part of that, and so forth. And so those mechanisms that are already in place ensure that the deputies, the officers are trained, that they're educated in their field, in their craft. And so we are doing that, and I would maintain that, obviously. But things change, technology changes, laws change, and so you have to stay updated. So continually making sure your officers are trained. Captain Duffy talked about CIT training, excellent example. The deputies all should be trained in that, how to interact with people with mental illness and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Joe, we'll just move to you. You're good with the question?
Yeah. So, being the patrol captain, I've set a set of standards that my bosses told me that what their expectations were when I took over in September of 2015. And those standards are go out and work hard every single day. I'm a taxpayer here, you're all taxpayers here. I don't want lazy deputies driving around doing nothing when there's burglars out there to be caught and bad people out there doing bad things. Drugs, gang violence. The fact that we don't have any gangs here is not a mystery. We have gangs at our doors though. In Carson City we have very violent gangs. We have very violent gangs in Sparks and Reno. Those gangs do not recognize jurisdictional lines like we do. They come through here. So it's important to put those proper people in the correct places to make sure we don't have those problems here in Douglas County. There's a reason you don't see graffiti on our walls out here when you're driving down 395. That didn't just happen by magic. Under my command of the patrol division, our crime has dropped about 1.5% since I've taken over. Our field contacts have gone up from 200 before I took over to over 800. Our tickets have risen, but I have told the officers that is purely discretionary to them what they want to write or not write. But driving around doing nothing doesn't stop crime. And they know that under my command, they need to go out and work for an honest day's work that we're all paying for. Thank you.
Dean, we'll go with you.
Can you read the question again?
How would you ensure job competence and accountability for your officers and staff?
First, I would take a look at what their current policies are and their standards are, push it down the chain, see what the chain recommends for any changes, for any policy changes, adhering to performance standards or what the expectations are or what the mission statement of the sheriff's office is. Then as a sheriff, I would ensure by setting the example to maintain those standards. As one way to make sure that standards are being set is I would show up at 10 o'clock at night, jump in a patrol vehicle and go out with a deputy. I would do it any time of day, day or night. One, it's to ensure that the deputies are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Two, it's building the confidence of the deputies that I am willing to go the extra mile and set the example so they will want to step up and do what they're doing. And three, it may look like micromanaging, but it's not micromanaging. I'm just there to support them. In the Marine Corps, I did the same thing. I wrote traffic reports as a watch commander. I wrote traffic accidents and investigated burglaries and a couple child abuse cases as a watch commander and a platoon sergeant. I go out there and help. I lead. I will take over an investigation and let them continue on to do what they need to do throughout the day. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty, and I would expect that the deputies would be willing to go the extra mile to help me accomplish the mission statement while maintaining those standards and holding myself accountable as well as everyone else within the office accountable. And thank you.
And Dave, you good with the question?
Yeah, it was competence or competence?
How would you ensure job competence and accountability for your officers and staff?
One of the things that I would do, and I'm going to steal Dean's thunder, is that I will lead from the front. I'm not going to ask any deputy to do anything that I myself wouldn't do. I have to set the example. Another thing that we will look at doing is seeking national certification through the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. This is a national organization whose sole purpose is to work with agencies to review their policies and procedures, their training modules, and their training in totality, and provide recommendations and suggestions as to how they might best improve either their policies or their procedures, and recommend best practices that they see that are working across the nation. I think that the time is right for this organization to have someone that can bring new leadership with a fresh perspective and ask the questions, what can we do better, what can we do differently, and what can we do to provide the most cost-effective public safety services to our community. And so much of that centers on training. Typically, when the budgets get tight, the first thing to go is training. And I will make sure that training is a priority in my department on a regular basis. Thank you. Hey, I made it.
Okay. let's start at the end with Dean, so let's be the first one on this one. What would you do differently from Sheriff Perini, and what would you do the same?
Sheriff Perini's done a fabulous job keeping Douglas County safe. My intention is to keep that trend going and keep Douglas County safe as it is today. There are some programs that were instituted by Sheriff Perini. Their program, the gang task force, definitely want to keep those going. I would like to reinstitute a couple more school resource officers. It is vital. We have 12 schools and only 2 officers. That's a lot of coverage for 2 deputies to cover. I also want to interact and re-energize the community policing program. A couple years ago, deputies used to get out, walk around the neighborhoods, ride bicycles, say hi to the people, and that's kind of gone away. We need to get that back instilled so the sheriff's office and the community are back working together and communicating. That's one of the things that people have been telling me as I've been walking around talking to people is there's kind of a disconnect right now. So I want to get that program going and just getting people involved with what the sheriff's office does and get the sheriff's office involved, playing softball with regular softball teams, do some other stuff to help out the agency, get along with the people of Douglas County and keep everyone happy and while still keeping Douglas County safe.
Joe?
So you've heard about some of the programs that we have here. The gang program is a program that I helped start here in Douglas County with specially trained officers that I help mentor and train. Our MOST team, you've heard about that. What I'd like to do, since we only have the MOST team 1 day a week, that is way understaffed. And we need to have that, I think, at least 3 to 5 days a week. Because our mental health population is not going down. And it is only getting worse. And again, it's not just here, it is nationwide. So what I'd like to do is seek funding, and we already have a grant that funds this program once a week. And I believe that there is other funding out there to be had. President Trump is going to be releasing funding for these programs, and I would like to seize that opportunity to make sure we have 3 to 5 days, maybe 7 days a week in the future for our officers to go out and contact this mentally ill population, because the people they contact may be the next school shooter, they may be the next theater shooter, they may be the next Walmart shooter, or they may be somebody driving a van down 395 that's going to wipe you out. So I want to make sure that those people are contacted, we identify them, we know who they are, and we may prevent a fatality. So that's exactly what I'd like to do. But the existing programs we have in place are excellent, and I would definitely want to keep those going.
I want to use my wild card.
Okay. Want me to repeat the question?
One of the things that I think Sheriff Brady has done an excellent job with is his relationship with the community. He is very well known, very well respected and liked, and he has made that a point to create that relationship because he thinks it's important, and I agree with him 100%. So I want to enhance and improve that relationship that he already has now. There's only 107 officers from top to bottom in the sheriff's office. There's about 48,000 residents in the county. We can't do our job as effectively as we can without your help. And without that relationship, then you are reluctant to help. If you don't expect or have the faith or confidence that we're going to do what we're going to need to do and do the right thing, then you're not going to help us. And that doesn't benefit anyone. One of the biggest things that you see in the news recently is the opioid epidemic, all right? And with fentanyl, which is a synthetic form of heroin that mostly comes in from China and through Canada and Mexico. It's on the East Coast and in the Rust Belt, Ohio, Kentucky, that area, and it's devastating. It is making its way west. And it is here in Douglas County to a certain extent, but it will only increase, I think. So what that means for us, okay, is that once heroin gets into a community, then it affects, there's a ripple effect of everything else. It impacts property crime, thefts, violent crime, family crime, domestic violence, child abuse, child neglect, those types of things. And so one of the things that I would look to do is to increase our ability or our presence in our narcotics investigation. We currently have 3 units, 2 task forces that we belong to, and then a unit within investigations that work primarily just narcotic investigations. And I would like to increase that a little bit with our general investigators when the need or when the case comes up, and it's kind of an all hands on deck. Because I think that if we let it in here and let it get a foothold, then we're playing catch up for the rest of our lives. Okay? And we need to do everything that we can to prevent that, because it's coming. So what are we going to do to prevent that? And how are we going to keep it? We need to work collaboratively with our mental health professionals, with our hospitals, okay, with our schools, all right, as well as law enforcement. And so you need to hit it in kind of a 3-pronged approach: education, prevention, and then enforcement, all right? Anyone who has a family member or a friend that is addicted to opioids, it is a nasty, nasty drug, and it can rip a family apart and totally dominate their existence. And so the sheriff's office, if we can help with that, to prevent that, to help that person to overcome that addiction, to get off of that substance and be a productive part of our community, I think it's well worth our effort to do that, okay? And so the sheriff's office can't just be enforcement, all right, but we also need to help our partners in the community, okay, with education, prevention, and that type of thing. And so that's what I would do differently than we're doing now. We're doing it, but I think we can do it a little better. And I think that the epidemic, it's not called an epidemic for no reason, warrants a big effort in this arena. So thank you very much.
The challenge in going last is everybody stole my thunder. I will say that in the 20 years that Ron has been the sheriff, he's done an excellent job in building the community relationships. You see across the country many cities that do not have the relationships that we have in this community. It's a real sense of community. 2 things that I would look to do. Having served for 20 years, I think it's time for a fresh perspective in the leadership role. One of the first things I would do is conduct an operational audit, the purpose of which is to examine the staffing and structure of the organization to determine how can we best reallocate resources to be more cost effective and delivering on the services that the community has come to expect. One example is school resource officers. There is movement to get an additional school resource officer. When I was on the school board, I was the one that pushed for the school resource officer program. I had to pound the table with my shoe hard because there were those that thought maybe we shouldn't do this. And I think in retrospect, it's turned out to be extremely good. The additional idea I have is to develop a strategic plan. Develop and implement a strategic plan. Keep that down. Typically, well, when I became a commissioner, we had no strategic plan in the county, and I'm proud to say that if you go to the commission chambers, you will see a strategic plan posted on the wall. And to the commissioner's credit, they review it and update it every year. I think it's critically important that this organization have its own strategic plan, which identifies the vision and mission for the organization, is communicated throughout the organization, and is reviewed and updated on a regular basis. And again, one of the priorities may be how do we increase our presence in the schools. You're getting annoying.
Doing my job.
You're doing a good job, Mary.
So for anybody who would like to be here past midnight, raise your hand. Okay, so we'll keep moving right along. See, I'll start with you on this one, Joe. What are the leadership qualities that the department needs right now?
The leadership qualities of the department, I think, are in place. It's important to have ethics at the top. Good leadership starts at the top and trickles down to the bottom. You've heard me say that I've got 28 years experience. LA County Sheriff's the largest department in the nation, the largest jail in the nation as well. I gained a lot of valuable experience working there that I brought here to Douglas County. And working assignments like internal affairs, investigations, SWAT, K-9, patrol, the jail. I've got a very well-rounded view of our department. There is no assignment that I've not worked in our department. And I give very clear expectations to the people that are below me. And like you've heard me say before, I expect the deputies to go out and do a good job. Nobody here, while you're sleeping in your beds at night, wants a deputy who's sleeping also in his patrol car. Because that's the kind of stuff that was going on when I took over the patrol division. I found officers sitting at Starbucks for 2 hours drinking coffee while people are racing up and down Highway 395. Our fatality rate here has risen 120% for traffic. So traffic is our #1 call for service. We had 11,000 calls for service last year for traffic. So it's important that the deputies are out on the road protecting all of you and not sitting at Starbucks drinking coffee.
Thank you. Dave, we'll jump over to you. What are the leadership qualities that the department needs now? And I think you've used both there. Right? Go ahead.
I'll take my 5 minutes. Is it 5 minutes, 3 minutes,
I'm
what?
going to take your 5 wild
It's
cards,
five,
that's
and I'll
fine.
give you the 30 seconds, 15 seconds, done.
I know you will. I think it's important to realize what the expectations or requirements of your sheriff are. All of these individuals, including myself, believe it or not, have street experience that is very good in terms of certain positions within the department. What I look at is what can you expect from your sheriff in terms of their ability to provide administrative, investigative, and supervisory experience. We have to look at this. We have captains that are going not to undersheriff, but jumping to the captain, the sheriff's position, which is the largest department in the county in terms of its budget, $16.5 million. So what we need is somebody that can bring administrative experience to the position. Having served as your commissioner for 6 years, I managed the entire budget with others, $156 million. And I was responsible in the downturn in 2010 to try and manage the budget to figure out how can we reduce costs in an environment of declining revenues. I think that the leadership skill sets that are required of this job are a number of them. Managerial skills. Can you motivate? Are you willing to listen? Are you inspiring people with your behavior? Are you leading from the front? People skills. Are you compassionate and understanding? Are you willing to look at situations and think outside the box in dealing with personnel issues or with organizational issues within the department? Communication skills. Are you visible in the community? Like Dean, I will be very visible in this community. Again, you have to lead from the front. Don't be surprised if you make a call for service and I show up at your front door. I think like Dean, I love pushing a black and white, and I will continue to do that. I will not sit in an ivory tower and not do the job that I expect others to do. Also, the job requires financial skills. You're managing a $16.5 million budget, and you better have some background in business and finance. And I can tell you that for the last 33 years, I've managed $40 million on a daily basis. I know how to manage money, and I know how to budget. By trade, I'm a certified financial planner. When you have a $16.5 million budget, you better have somebody that knows the numbers and how they work. They better have the political skills as well. It's important to know the landscape. Having served on the school board for 9 years, as well as on your commission for 6 years, I have a really good understanding of this entire community from many different perspectives. Like I said, I was responsible for bringing on the school resource officer program. I have worked as a reserve, worked all 4 corners of this county, like many of these individuals here, worked the boat. I've seen all aspects of the organization. Haven't worked the jail, not to the extent that Captain Duffy has, but I do have an awareness of the organization itself and some of the things that need to be looked at. Other traits that a leader needs to bring, like was mentioned, high ethical standards. You need to be able to serve as a role model, as I said. Believe in accountability. That is a big one. There has to be an emphasis on community relations. I think that what we've started, or what Ron has started in this community, has been excellent. We need to continue to maintain that, especially in a time post-Ferguson, when you see so many of the issues that are plaguing communities in this community. We need to stay on top of that and be proactive in how we work with our community at large. There has to be a strong sense of community. I believe we have that. Anytime you see a situation that flooding or fires, whatever, this community rallies big. And the Sheriff's Department is a part of that, as well as other public safety agencies. And you need to be able to identify talent and put it in play. I think one of the primary responsibilities of a leader is to be able to identify and develop the leadership of tomorrow. I think that's one of those issues that hasn't been done. That's why you have two captains vying for this position. When I was on the county commission, we identified Michael Brown as the county manager, and I said we need to get an assistant county manager. We need to create continuity within the organization. One of the things that leads to a dysfunctional organization is a lack of continuity in leadership. And I think that's one of the things that we're being challenged with today. And I think at the same time, you need to be able to identify and demonstrate passion for the position. You have to have an energy and excitement, come to work every day and share your enthusiasm with the troops, because not everybody has a good day. So I think that along with that, you have to look at being creative and conservative. What things can you do? And this is why I say we need new leadership with a fresh perspective. I worked in this department in 1986, and basically things have remained unchanged. And I think that we need to look at things more creatively and say, what can we do differently that we can, improve upon the services we're providing? What can we do that will make the troops, enjoy their job more and quit leaving? So there's a combination of things that can be done. And the other, you need to have a successful leadership history, and I have it. Thank you.
Dean, what are the leadership qualities that you feel the department needs right now?
The department has great leadership inside of it, but there's one little piece of pie that's missing. There are no lieutenants in the sheriff's office. What I would like to see happen, and as sheriff, through natural attrition, when two captains retire, step down, move on, so on and so forth, I would want to create two lieutenant positions. By creating two lieutenant positions, that creates a stepping stone where they can slowly progress as leaders from sergeant to a lieutenant to a captain and be able to move on up instead of sitting as sergeant. Now there's nowhere to go because there's no lieutenant spots. They're pretty much stuck there. And if they do happen to get to a captain position, they bypass that whole lieutenant level position to build on the fundamentals of leadership. And as sheriff, that is one thing I would want to push for. That would be a priority. It's going to have to propose to the union as well as the Sheriff's Association to make sure we can do that. But as long as it's within the Master Labor Agreement, those positions will be created. And as a leader and proven leader throughout the Marine Corps, I can help build the fundamentals for leadership, build on the basis of leadership by setting the example and establishing a set of guidelines to help mentor and build up the leadership where the captains can mentor the lieutenants can mentor the sergeants, I can mentor the undersheriff, and anyone can mentor me, because there could be deputies out there that can be great leaders, but unless you empower them, they have no chance to succeed.
He's good.
Yeah, you're on. You weren't going to wait.
Leadership is obviously super important, and anyone that aspires to be the head of an organization, the sheriff in this case, needs to have strong leadership. I think that starts with experience, with as much education as you can get, and an understanding of the position that you want. I don't see how you can be the sheriff if you haven't done a career in law enforcement and experienced and worked with the changes that have come since the 1980s in law enforcement and the changes that are happening every day. Sheriff Perini picked me to endorse as his successor. The deputies voted overwhelmingly, 78%, to endorse me. I have the endorsement of the South Lake Tahoe Police Department, the Tahoe Douglas Fire Department. Those are men and women that I work with and have worked with my entire career, and they have put their confidence that they want me to be their leader. If I don't have the buy-in of the people that work for me, if they don't believe in me that I can do what's right for them and for their department and for their future, then I'm going to struggle. And the sheriff, whoever that may be, will struggle. And so I think that experience and what your peers say about you, I think, is a big statement.
Thank you.
So, Joe, you can be first on this. What do you consider the greatest threats to public safety in Douglas County, and what are your solutions?
So I keep going back to the mentally ill and gangs. So you've heard me talk about the MOST program. That is very, very important that we keep that going. If we don't keep that going, we are going to have those problems here that you see across the nation. We have gangs that are in Carson City and Sparks and Reno that are all LA-based gangs. We do not want those problems coming here. I moved here to get away from that garbage in 1995. And I don't want to see that garbage here in Douglas County. We specifically moved away from LA to raise a family here because I didn't want to raise a family in that cesspool. And I imagine a lot of you folks have moved from California. Northern California has the same problem as Southern California does for the same reasons. I don't want the smog, I don't want the traffic, I don't want the rude people, and I don't want to see graffiti on the walls. I don't want to have my car broken into in the middle of the night. I don't want to have my house broken into while I'm at work. Those are the reasons that I moved here. And as your sheriff, I promise you that those qualities of life that I saw 25 years ago when we came through here will remain the same if you elect me as sheriff.
Dave, would you like me to repeat the question?
Go ahead.
What do you consider the greatest threats to public safety in Douglas County, and what are your solutions?
I think one of the biggest threats that we have is one that we don't necessarily see, which is the drug problem that we're experiencing throughout the county and in our community. It's the opioid crisis, as was mentioned. It was prescription drug overdoses. These are things that permeate the community and create a demand for services, whether it be from the social services groups or from public safety as well, including police and fire. So I think that one of the things we have to do is work to educate the community as best we can through different venues, through social services, through Suicide Prevention Network, and through the schools to try and grab this problem and minimize it as best we can through education and trying to build trust with our community and we have multiple programs where we try and get the prescriptions back. But this is I think the silent killer that permeates the community in the sense that people that have drug problems, what are they going to do? They're going to go break into your car, they're going to go burglarize your house, and that creates a large part of the problems that we have in the community. It's all centered on drug-related issues. So I see this as being the real challenge that we have. I think what we need to do is be able to reallocate resources to the street and increase the number of deputies we have that are able to deal with the drug-related issues, whether it be with our SET team or in any other way. Thank you.
Dan, would you like to answer the question?
So I touched on it a little earlier. The opioid epidemic, I think, is a big issue. With that comes gangs. Drugs are trafficked through gangs primarily, or a lot of instances. And so once you let that get into your community, then a large part of your resources are to fight that. Okay, and you're like the tail on the dog. You're always behind. Okay, so we need to aggressively identify and to target those individuals that are using, selling, possessing narcotics, any type of gang activity, and then with there's three parts to that also: education, prevention, and enforcement. And so we need to work with our partners in the community and share information and work together. We need to work with our partners, our neighboring jurisdictions, Carson City, South Lake Tahoe, the state, the feds, DEA, FBI, and work together collaboratively to attack the problem. And I think that way we will be the most successful in preventing that element from consuming our community, which it can if we allow it. Thank you.
Dean?
The opiate problem is a big problem. I attended a law enforcement summit a couple months ago in Mesquite, Nevada, where all the sheriffs and police chiefs of Nevada were there. It's actually at the Attorney General level. Adam Maxwell was there. And this opiate problem is so bad law enforcement have been given some medication to help them from getting infected if they come in contact with fentanyl. That's how bad this problem is. How do you resolve it? You start by, what I would want to do is institute a committee. The school board, members of the commissioners and the sheriff's office, establish a committee on ways to educate and get the word out to the people that this is a problem, this is how you prevent it. Some education, use crime analysis, crime mapping, figure out where these target hotspots are at, figure out where they're coming from, and target those areas and concentrate on neutralizing the spread of this opiate problem. It's nationwide. President Trump declared emergency on it. It's hit Nevada, and it's slowly disseminating. Vegas has numerous deaths every day from it. Reno's had a few, and it just goes on and on. So this committee would help bring the education, the training to the people that need to know about it, getting the schools involved. Schools could talk to the parents through parent-teacher conferences and get the message out there and ensuring that this is happening, and then get the deputies trained to how to recognize and combat this and keep it from spreading.
Okay, Dean, get back up.
Time out.
Okay, this is a two-part question. In your view, what are the department's funding priorities for the next 5 years? And what is your plan for ensuring that the sheriff's department gets the budget it needs or wants in a fiscally conservative county?
I do not know what the current sheriff's office budget forecast is. I have seen the 5-year contract when it comes to pay for personnel. But for a long-term goal, I would want to sit down with the commissioners and ensure that the commissioners were keeping that budget for the pay for the deputies at a reasonable rate with the cost increase, and also push for more funding to keep the programs going and initiate new programs like school resource officers, like what Joe was talking about, most team, get more resources out there. It is a fight with the commissioners. Commissioners don't want to charge people more taxes. The people don't want more taxes. But sometimes we've got to, if we tax a couple cents here and there for our safety, we got to draw the line and sacrifice somewhere. If it comes down to getting a couple more cents out of each person for cell phones or 911 calls, then that's something we're going to have to push for. Because overall, we have to protect the community, but we can't protect the community if we don't have the money. And if the commissioners can't get the money from the people, then how are we going to do our job as the sheriff's office? So it's kind of like trying to get all the lemon lemon juice out of lemon, but it's going to take the people to get involved and want to sacrifice a couple cents here and there if it came down to a 911 tax or an emergency tax to help support the sheriff's office to continue on with a 5-year plan and keep the money going and keep the training and personnel here.
We'll just come back up the line. Joe, do you need the question?
Yeah, would you read it again, please?
In your view, what are the department's funding priorities for the next 5 years? And what is your plan for ensuring that the sheriff's department gets the budget it needs / wants in a fiscally conservative county?
So we actually just secured funding for a 3rd school resource officer that will be assigned to Carson Valley Middle School. The school district's paying for half of that, the county's paying for the other half. You've heard me talk about our K-9 unit. I was one of 2 handlers in the mid-90s, and at that time we had 4 dogs, 2 patrol and 2 narcotic. Since then, we've increased our dogs to 6 German Shepherds. Each of those dogs cost $10,000 a piece. I have raised $100,000 this last year to get those 6 dogs. We also conducted a haunted house. You may have heard of that for the kids here at the fairgrounds, for our honor guard to be able to go to Washington, D.C. for Peace Officer Memorial Week. That's coming up in May. We raised $15,000 in 6 nights. The most team you've heard me talk about, that is something that's very important, and there are going to be grants out there coming up for those positions. So if we can't, taxes aren't an option here to be raised. I don't think we've tried that before, and it got turned down. So I think it's important that we really look at the things that are critical, and we go to the county commissioners for those things, like the school resource officer. That's a critical position. That is more critical than our roads, I believe. Our school children are our most valuable asset. So I want to make sure that when we're securing those funds for those key positions, that those those are very important. If I go to the county commissioners and I'm asking for money, that's an important position that we need to be filled. And I can back those stats up with DOJ stats, our crime rate, and it's not just me going in there asking willy-nilly for money.
Dan, you good with the question?
I am. So the current budget is about $16.8 million, as Mr. Brady alluded to earlier. The bulk of the budget is used for salaries and benefits, about 80%. The remainder of the budget is split up, divided up between the jail, which is a big part of the budget. Running the jail is expensive. There are certain things that we have to do by law as we bring in inmates in and they're in our custody to care for them and that. And then you have the patrol division and investigation, which takes up a bulk of our equipment, vehicles, things like that. One thing that I would like to do to increase our training budget. Currently our training budget is about $20,000. Carson City conversely has about an $80,000 training budget. So by increasing the training budget, that would allow us to educate our officers and get them the critical training that they need. The other thing that I would like to do is to increase the number of officers in the department. And to do that, the county commissioners have to approve those positions. You have to work with them and to convince them that that's good for the community and vital for us to be able to do our job. A good relationship with the county commissioners and with the county government is vital in order to negotiate those types of budget increases that we would ask for.
Dave, you good with the question?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I did write it down here before you said it.
Maybe I read it.
Funding priorities. First and foremost, I think Dean mentioned that the DC SPA has negotiated a 5-year contract, so that takes care of the next 5 years. But what do I see as one of my top priorities? Officer safety. Officer safety centers on training and equipment. I want to make sure that they have what they need to do their job and to do it well. Like you mentioned, training, that's usually the first budget line that gets cut. One of the things that I will initiate is what's called expenditure control budgeting. What happens today in government is you use it or you lose it. And I know that as a reserve, I walk out in the jail, Sally Port, and I see mattresses stacked to the ceilings. It's June. Why did we have all these mattresses? Well, we had to spend the money. So we bought mattresses? Okay. Expenditure control budgeting requires that if we can find ways to save money within the budget, if I have a $16.5 million budget and I'm able to save $500,000, I'm not giving it back to the commission because I'm going to use that money to pay for those things that I've identified within my strategic plan that come with a cost. One of which may be, hey, we need to hire a training officer, or we need to get more equipment. We'll do what we can to make that happen. And I do believe that having been a commissioner for 6 years, I know how it works. I think that I would develop a very good working relationships with the commissioners. I think that I was very supportive in my 6 years as a commissioner for the department.
So this is our last question. So,
Before closing, you're not off the hook now.
yeah, this is our last question, then you have a chance to do your closing statements. Why do you want this job? And let's start with Dan.
That is an excellent question. The reason that I want to be sheriff is I genuinely love the community that I live. I grew up here, I came back here, I had the blessing of being able to raise my family here. It's a beautiful place to live. One of the things that makes it such a nice place is it's safe. And the community gets along. And like Dave said, whenever there's an incident or an accident, we pull together and we work for the common good. And you don't find that in a lot of different places. I've loved the career that I've had at the sheriff's office. I've been able to do many things. I've been able to help and make a difference in people's lives. The experiences that I've had as a deputy working here and living here has changed me and it impacted me for the good and for the better. Now, I want to give back. I want to return that. I think the sheriff's office is vital to keeping the community safe, keeping it the great place that we have to live here. And the sheriff is the sheriff of everyone, regardless of your background, your ethnicity, or who you are, or what you believe, or what you think. And it's important to have someone that is going to enforce the law consistently and fairly and do the job for the right reason.
Dean?
I'm taking my 5 minutes. About a year ago, on a Saturday morning, I looked over at my wife about 6 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey babe, I want to run for sheriff." She looked at me and said, "Well, I haven't had enough coffee for this." But why I want to be sheriff? When I first came out here in 2014, I fell in love with the community. I fell in love with the people. I was stationed at Pickle Meadows. I came across here one night to go to the movies, and just to see how great the people were, walking around, waving, saying hi, it caught my attention. A couple months later, I met my wife through a CCW class, and then here we are. A little over 3 years later, we're still here. This is our home. We chose to stay here. I had a chance to go retire in Montana. I said, no, I want to stay here. I like Douglas County. I like the people. I'm involved. I help out at the community food closet. I like doing volunteer events. I used to always show up for the canned food drive. And just to see how the community comes together in a time of need is just phenomenal. And that kind of gave me the inspiration, the motivation to want to still help people. I did it for Marine Corps for 20 years. I did what the people of America wanted me to do. I went to Iraq 3 times. I got awarded the Purple Heart, received a Meritorious Service Medal for leadership. I wasn't born a leader, but through my times in the Marine Corps, I built on those fundamentals to become a leader, and I have mentored and taken care of so many Marines and their families throughout the years. It gave me the positive confidence that I can do this as a sheriff. I still hold those core values true to myself. I always hold myself accountable, and I believe in what I want to do, and I accept the challenge. I know it's going to be difficult, but it's just like in the military. You go in with a strategic plan, like Dave said, develop a strategic plan, and you go in and take care of the people, take care of the deputies. That's what the priority is. And based on those fundamentals of leadership I've acquired, that's what makes me feel like I'm the best candidate. I'm eyes wide open, new set of eyes, new perspectives, new ideas coming in. I don't have influence from the left. I don't have influence from the right. I'm going around day to day, listening to what you, the people in the community, are telling me when I go door to door. Hey, these are our concerns. This is what we like addressed, and that is what's giving me the motivation to keep on pushing forward. That's why I'm so passionate about wanting to be sheriff, because it's something that the people need. And from what I've been hearing, it's time for change. It's a positive change, and that I can bring that to the people of Douglas County. Lost my train of thought. But anyways, there's a lot of good things going on with the sheriff's office right now. I feel there's a need to kind of get involved and boost morale, bring some motivation back within the office, bring the community back together. That's my intention. If elected, if I have to go through the academy, I'm looking forward to the academy. Why am I looking forward to going to the post academy? One, I get to start from the bottom and work my way up. That is setting the example. That's what leaders do, set the example. Two, I can assure that what is being taught at the post academy is still being carried on within the sheriff's office, and hold them accountable if they decide to go to a gray area. And three, as a leader, while in the cadet forum, I can still work and mentor the young deputies and help them build their foundation, so when they get to their respective agencies, they will have the leadership and confidence to bring good things to that agency. That's just the type of person I am. I always sacrifice myself and put myself ahead of everyone else. You could ask any Marine, any of my friends, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I never back down from a fight. And that's why I feel like I'm the best candidate. Thank you.
So why do I want to be sheriff? You've already heard me talk about when I was young. This is the profession I knew I always wanted to do. So at age 20, I became a deputy sheriff. And I've been a deputy sheriff or in law enforcement full-time almost my entire adult life. Being a law enforcement officer is a very noble profession. I always wanted to be able to be the person to help those that could not help themselves. And in law enforcement, I have worked my way from deputy sheriff to sergeant to captain, working every assignment on the way up through the ranks. I've earned my way up, and I've been the longest captain here at the sheriff's office running for sheriff, with 8 years under my belt, with 3 different divisions. I have the training and experience to lead this agency based on my prior encounters with a lot of dangerous and critical incidents. I've dealt with a lot of different things. I've had to recommend the firing and termination of very unethical deputies. Your leader at the top needs to be ethical and bring the best quality deputy sheriff here to protect you and your assets here in Douglas County. I have that experience to do that, and as your sheriff, you have my word. I will work as hard as I can to keep this place as safe as it is now, because we are one of the safest counties in the state of Nevada.
That's right, you did. My brother asked me, he says, why do you want that job? It's 8 to 5 every day. I'm semi-retired, so it's a very puzzled look. I think I speak for all of us when I say each one of us is a blue blood. It's something that gets into your life and just you become passionate about it and you want to live it as best you can. And after beginning in the business 40 years ago, why do I want to get back into it? It's because it's my passion and it's something that I love to do. And I think that when I was a patrolman in Redondo, I realized that one day I wanted to lead a law enforcement agency. So I asked around, what do you need to have to lead a law enforcement agency? Well, you need to get a bachelor's degree, and you better get a master's degree too. I said, okay, where do you get that? He said, well, you can go to USC, that's the best school for it. Had they said UCLA, I probably would have gone there, but nevertheless, I went to USC. My intent at the time was to one day lead a law enforcement agency. I think we can all agree that life throws us curves and twists in the road, and when I moved to Nevada, I ended up working for the Game Control Board and eventually started a financial services firm. I believe it's time for new leadership in this department, and I believe that my broad-based background in both the public as well as the private sector lends itself to this job more so than any other person, because I do have a vast experience having worked with in American Express, having worked as president of a police association, president of the school board. I think that I bring a real multidimensional perspective to the job at a time that I think is critically needed. When you look at the grand jury report, that tells you a lot. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll kind of wrap it up a little bit, but I'm going to give everybody a 2-minute closing. And this is an opportunity, if you've been thinking about anything, not any of the questions that we had, something that you just want to bring up, talk about, tell us about, 2 minutes. It's free for all, well, not quite. But talk about whatever you want for 2 minutes to go ahead and close it off. Dan, I'll let you start, please.
First of all, I want to thank you for hosting this and having us here and coming out and giving some of your time to get to know us and allow me to talk to you and to meet you. This is an important race. It's a little bit historical in Douglas County. We haven't, in my career, there hasn't been 4 people running for the office of sheriff, since going way back to the late 60s. And so it's unique. And you can see the excitement in the community and the interest. And I think that's because we all agree that public safety is important. And it's one of the things that allows us to have this great community that we have. I am, like Dave said, I am passionate about Douglas County. I am passionate about law enforcement. It is an honor, or it has been an honor, to work for the Sheriff's Office, to work under Sheriff Perini, and I want to continue the tradition of service that he has implemented here. And that is to ensure that there's a safe community for my family and your family and for generations to come, and keep this the gem that it is. There's nothing better than traveling out of the area, and you're coming back down, you drop into the valley, you see Job's Peak, and you know you're home. And it's just a great feeling, okay? I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I don't lock my house door a lot. Okay? I want you to, though. But, it's because I'm comfortable here. I don't worry about things, okay? And I think the Sheriff's Office has done a great job, and I want to continue that. And so thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Joe, 2 minutes, whatever you want to talk about.
So I want to talk about the man that I've chosen as under sheriff if I'm elected, and that's Captain Jim Halsey. He's right over there. He's the captain of our jail division. He's a 30-year veteran of law enforcement. He will also work LA County Sheriff's Department and has worked here for 25 years. And I did not know him down in Los Angeles. We actually met here. But the role of the undersheriff position, and Undersheriff Howell's retiring, so there will be an undersheriff position open, is just as critical as the sheriff. Jim has also been the captain for 2.5 years and run our jail division, like I said. And he's also a 30-year veteran of the military, of the Navy Seabees. So you're getting 58 years experience in a team of sheriff and undersheriff. There's nobody running that has that amount of time. And it's, again, the leadership at the top is a vital role because it trickles down to the bottom. And I'd just like to recap with how I came here 25 years ago. My wife Teresa and I came here to visit a friend, and we couldn't believe what we saw. No traffic, there were no gangs, there were 4 seasons, couldn't believe that. People were friendly. And so I knew that I wanted to raise my family here. And my son Maverick goes to school here, he's a senior here, he works at the lifeguard, as a lifeguard at the swim center. We have raised this is our home, this is our family, this is our life. I didn't just get beamed from outer space here. This is where I live and where I work. And all those things I've talked about gang-free, quality of life, I will continue as your sheriff to make sure those qualities of life remain the same. You can't just leave that up to somebody with no experience. So I please ask you, vote for me on June 12th. You can go to my website, joeduffyforsheriff.com. You can fact-check everything I've talked about today. And I promise you, I will work hard for you and keep this place the way it was we found it 25 years ago. Thank you.
And Dave, whatever you want, but not for however long you want.
I'll tell you that this campaign season, I have an image problem. People think that I'm a bean counter, an accountant, a bookkeeper. Yeah, I've spent my life managing money. But also, I need to tell you what else I've been doing. You know, I spent 8 years as a police officer in Southern California. I mentioned that briefly. Majority of that time as a canine officer. I had countless arrests, kicked down doors on crack houses, and arrested, you know, the worst of the worst, so Joe could take care of them. It's important to know that I have a deep commitment to this community and a deep commitment to public service. Having served 6 years as your commissioner, I was appointed by Governor Kenny Gwynn, and 9 years on your school board. I've served 15 years as a reserve deputy sheriff in Douglas County. I've worked basically every detail from the jail to patrolling Lake Tahoe. I have the experience when it comes to working the street. But at the same time, I have the experience of providing executive level leadership at the top of an organization. I've led organizations, and this is what we need. We need to be clear about the expectations of who we want as our sheriff, and do they have the ability to lead an organization and have the background to understand what organizational development is and how you're going to transition this organization into the 21st century. I think for the most part, the organization's kind of been freeze-dried in the 80s, and we need to transition into the 21st century. And I believe I'm the individual that can do it because I have a vision to make this the best place to work in northern Nevada. I think the Douglas County Sheriff's Office has great talent. But I do believe they need leadership that has a vision for the future and an understanding as to how we can move forward And with that, I mentioned briefly, conducting an operational audit, developing a strategic plan, seeking national certification, lead by listening. These are the attributes that you need from your leader. And I have the experience and have the proven success record to make it happen in both the public as well as the private sector. 40 years in both of those arenas. I think that lends itself to what I consider to be a value-added proposition as your sheriff. Wow.
Dean, 2 minutes. There might be a misconception about military and military police. Military police do the same things as civilian police. I've done process DUIs, I've investigated sexual assaults, I've investigated rapes, murders, you name it, I've investigated. Military police does the same exact thing as our civilian counterparts. The only difference is, anytime we have to interact with this military member, we have to remember to always be on our guard, because those military people are trained to kill you and they are probably armed. So that is our biggest fear as military police when we go into a situation. With that being said, in Okinawa, Japan, I was in charge of 75 Marines. Island of Okinawa is 466 square miles. I was responsible for ensuring that these 75 Marines and 35 Japanese security guards were performing law enforcement duties both on and off base. If an incident happened off base involving the Japanese locals, we would have to investigate and try to keep that from becoming an international incident. During that time, the population in Okinawa was 1.3 million people. So you have 32,000 service members and 1.3 million people. I had to make sure my Marines were always professional on and off base. That's where the leadership came in. That's where my mentorship came in. That's where it came in as me setting the example, going out there, talking to the local nationals, the Japanese people, understanding what they need, understanding what the Marines need, and coming to a compromise using the base commander to resolve a situation before it became an international incident. Those are the challenges I had to face in Okinawa, and if I could do it in Okinawa successfully and come back and get promoted and continue on 3 more years in the Marine Corps, I have honorably served the Marine Corps for 20 years, and the people of America now give me the chance to serve Douglas County with the same honor. Thank you.
And I really want to say thanks to all of you for coming out. It's been a real pleasure. You've all conducted yourself so well. Thank you. And thank everybody in here for coming out. This is what it's all about. I am a firm believer that if we know the people that are running, if we know what they stand for, we're going to be able to make the best decisions. So I really thank everybody for being here. We're going to go ahead and leave the office open, and I will leave it up to the candidates if they want to take any individual questions. But as of that, I promised we would be officially done by 8:30, and we're going to hit our mark. Thank you.